Welcome back to another episode of the SPL Express as the international break comes to an end, and that means we shift our focus to the Singapore Premier League. But let's quickly talk about the international break. We have Rhysh Roshan Rai here with us. Roshan, a great outing for the Singapore team.
Yeah, two good games, two good results for the team that will give the players lots of confidence going forward with the Asian Cup qualifiers coming up in a few months' time. But also what was nice to see was the fans out supporting the national team, and hopefully all that enjoyment and excitement sort of carries on into the Singapore Premier League. So I'm looking forward to the weekend's action.
Well, lots to look forward to this weekend. But first, let's recap what happened in the Matchweek 4. 19 goals across 4 matches. Albirex against Lion City Sailors. That was the big one. It ended 1-1. Sailors stealing a late equalizer at the Jurong East Stadium. Tampines Rovers picked up their first win of the season, and they did it in style, 7-1 against Hougang. Tanjong Pagar continued to be the only unbeaten team in the league as they were held 1-1 by Geylang International, and Balestier Khalsa survived a late onslaught from the Young Lions to win them 4-3. So here's a look at the standings. Tanjong Pagar continue to lead the way ahead of Albirex Niigata and Lion City Sailors by a point. And Tampines Rovers, with their first win, they're up to 4th with 4 points, level with Geylang International. So here's a look at the fixtures for the upcoming weekend. Hougang United entertain Albirex Niigata on Friday, while Lion City Sailors play Balestier Khalsa. And on Saturday, it's the Eastern Derby, Geylang International up against Tampines Rovers. Remember, both are on same points in the league. And Young Lions are up against league leaders Tanjong Pagar. So some great games to look forward to. Roshan, let's start with Hougang versus Albirex. Hougang not in a position that they want to be in, especially after that heavy defeat. How do they approach this game?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Hougang actually set themselves up tactically in this one, because from what we've seen, the opening few weeks of the season, the matches that they've played in, they're trying to have a new sort of style of play, a style of football, which hasn't quite worked out for them in terms of performances and also results. As you said, it's not been going good for them in the opening few weeks of this campaign. So I just wonder if they are going to sort of stick with that and keep pursuing that, or if they've decided during the international break that it's time for them to perhaps make a bit of a change and try to go back somewhat to what they were last season, where they were playing more on the counter-attack against what it will be a strong Albirex Niigata side who are looking like they're starting to get into some real sort of rhythm and a flow. So again, it's because of that international break, because Hougang have had that time in training to kind of work on a few things. I'm interested to see what that setup is actually going to be like going into this game against Albirex.
You mentioned Albirex being a strong side. What is their biggest strength this season?
I think the fact that they know how to control games with the ball in possession, and we saw against the Lion City Sailors at times as well, especially late on in the second half, that they do know how to see games out in a sense. And I know Lion City Sailors were able to get a late penalty, but generally they were in control of that match. And what Albirex do as well really well is create lots of chances, lots of opportunities, and they have the firepower in those 4 positions, the likes of Kodai Tanaka up front, and he's been in good goal scoring form, leading the league with the goals that he scored for them. He gets himself into some really good positions. Was a bit quiet against the Lion City Sailors, but you can see that that training ground routines that he's been working on, the time that he's spent now with Albirex is starting to come into a rhythm as a side, as a whole. They create opportunities, and he's in there to finish off those chances. And COVID permitting, you should hopefully be seeing him in this side, and also perhaps Sadanari Lee and Sugita will be coming back into the Albirex team after they missed the game against the Lion City Sailors due to COVID.
You mentioned about game management. I think there's something that it's very interesting for fans, especially. How important and how does a team cultivate the kind of game management, the mentality?
Yeah, you can look at it from a few sort of different perspectives. One of it is obviously you're trying to control the tempo and the pace of the match. You can do that with the ball, where you are controlling possession and you can pass it around, you can make the opposition chase. And your choice of passes, sideways, backwards, at times you move forward, at times you stretch the pitch out. And then the other side of it as well is, instead of controlling possession and controlling the ball, you control spaces. So you kind of sit back into a compact little block and protect the spaces defensively in front of your defense, and you make the opposition then fight very hard or struggle to try and break you down. So there's a few ways that you can go out and look at do these things. It really depends on the situation in the match and what the coach has decided for his side going into these games. And also obviously there are the professional aspects of it. Some might say the cynical aspects of it, like breaking up play, committing fouls in certain areas, just to try and slow the game down and frustrate the opposition. But yeah, those are some of the options that you can take when it comes to that game management thing that pundits usually talk about.
Fascinating stuff. Let's shift our attention to the next game, which is also happening on Friday. Sailors up against Balestier. Sailors, a lot of the players were involved in the international break. They have a game coming up pretty soon, actually, after that break. How will that affect the preparation?
Yeah, I think that's always going to have a bit of an impact. While most of these other sides, I think the sides that didn't have players in the Singapore national team would have had the full squads perhaps available to them to train and work on a few things. Not quite the case with the Lion City Sailors that players in the national team. Having said that, though, this is still a squad that is blessed with some good quality and depth. I know they played a friendly match against Tanjong Pagar recently. They ended up winning that one. So there were things that they were working on in the build-up to the restart of the season after the international break. I still expect them to have the quality to do a lot better than they've been doing. Whether it's some of the national team players who haven't been in training to come back in. The players have that experience and that quality, I think, to be able to slot back into this side and still play some good football. So they should be, for me, when you look at it on paper, too strong for Balestier Khalsa. But again, the performances from the Sailors, they've been struggling to sort of find that fluidity and that balance so far in the season.
Well, Balestier have been a mixed bag this season.
Yeah.
I mean, they picked up their first win against the Young Lions, and the Japanese trio that they have showed the quality that they actually have in the final third of the field.
There's so much chaos when you watch Balestier Khalsa, and I mean that is in the sense that it's really entertaining if you like goals, because they will score goals, but they also open themselves up to the opposition and concede goals as well. Because I think in that front three, as you mentioned, the Japanese trio, those three players have so much quality and ability to create opportunities and to create chances, and they might fancy themselves getting a goal or two against the Lion City Sailors because of, as I said, Sailors in terms of that balance and that back line, sometimes they leave themselves a little bit open. And with Kuraba Kondo, who's got wonderful ability with the ball at his feet, got great acceleration and pace, the intelligence and quality of Taniguchi as well from those deeper midfield positions, or attacking midfield positions, making runs from deeper areas, I should say. And then Hoshino up front, who can play as at number 9 and who can also sort of drop off. So they have that flexibility, that fluidity and that understanding in that front three, and that makes them a real threat for Balestier Khalsa in those attacking areas. Defensively, though, and in terms of the structure of the team, that's still a big question mark around it. And I think even Akbar himself has said that they are playing well in an attacking sense, but defensively, that's still something they really have to work on.
It's a fascinating game to watch out for. On Saturday, we also have another fascinating tie. It's the first Eastern Derby of 2022. Geylang up against Tampines Rovers. This fixture never fails to amaze because it's always a feisty affair.
Yeah.
Last year in 2021, Geylang picked up a win, Tampines picked up a win, and there was also a draw. So what can we expect from this game?
Wow, I think, as you said, feisty. I think there'll be a lot of passion in the stands. Both sets of supporters have been excellent for the respective sides. So I think we'll see a bit of that, a bit of banter, a bit of chance going between the fans as well. And I think we'll see that fight from both these teams. And especially, I think Geylang with Noor Ali will be really fired up on the touchline as he always is. But I just feel that Tampines Rovers have been have a settled side in a sense. They've been under Gavin for a little bit longer. So his tactics, his style of play, that's sort of fully implemented in this Tampines Rovers team, and they've got players in there that know what to do in these matches, what's required of them, because they're familiar. Whereas for Noor Ali, I think what he's trying to do is play this possession-based game, playing out from the back in certain situations, but also with the flexibility to switch it up. You can see at times they look for these diagonal switches to exploit spaces on the far side. Tezuka is such an important player for Geylang in those midfield positions to dictate the tempo of the play and the passing game that Geylang are trying to sort of implement. So I think just based on that, I'm leaning towards Tampines Rovers here to sort of take this one. But as you've pointed out, it's been so close between these two sides over the last year or so.
You talk about playing the possession game. How isn't it important for you to have the quality to actually carry that out?
Yeah, and I think they do, to be fair. I think with Geylang and with Noor Ali, I can see what they're trying to do. I can see it. I can see a plan in place. And at times, the moves break down or they don't quite work out as well as they would have liked. But that to me is a sign of them needing a little bit more time with the coach. And again, it's sort of new players coming in, getting adjusted. And yes, you could say a lot of these players were with Balestier last year and they're still playing together. But let's remember, these players played a very different style of football under Balestier last year. So there's that sort of adjustment going. I think they have the players in there. As I mentioned, Tezuka is excellent at linking the play. I think Rio in that back line, he's sort of comfortable on the ball and he can play it through into the likes of Tezuka to get those attacks going forward. I want to see a little bit more from Bezakor, linking the attack. And you always know what you're going to get from Sime Zuzul. He's got quality in those forward positions to create opportunities for himself and to, of course, finish off those chances. And then they're supported by a really good local cast in that Geylang team. But again, it's just about whether they can try and get this consistency with the performances and that style of play going.
You talk about quality. Tampines have quality in the form of Kyoga Nakamura. Top assist so far with 4. What do you think he brings to this Tampines side?
He's an outstanding footballer, first of all, Kyoga Nakamura, and he's been consistent over the last few years with Tampines. And him and Mehmedovic are 2 players from that side that I really enjoy watching because they're so good in possession of the ball. But Nakamura, as you mentioned, his chance creation, the way he's able to see things from midfield areas. And I think his role has changed a little bit with Tampines this season as well. What we see from him now is he's allowed to get forward, he's allowed to carry the ball through the lines and get into more advanced positions. To not just play passes in behind, but to maybe get shots at goal as well, because he's got a really good left foot. Just vision, really good vision, awareness, and that technical quality as well to create opportunities. Such a key player, Kyoga Nakamura, in that Tampines Rovers midfield.
Well, the other game on Saturday is our match of the week. It's Young Lions up against Tanjong Pagar, bottom versus top. Roshan, what have you made of Young Lions season so far?
It's been challenging, but we expected this. I think a lot of us expected this coming into this season's campaign. Preparations for the season were disrupted as well. They had that, obviously, the AFF Under-23 competition. And it's going to be another challenging campaign. But what's encouraging for this Young Lions side is they play football in a certain way that's actually quite nice to watch. Just defensively, again, they leave themselves a little bit too loose, too open. They lose concentration, they lose track of runners at times, which can happen with younger players when there's no experience in the squad. But otherwise, if this is an exciting, young, talented side with lots of players that are very nice to watch in possession. Joel Chu's really good to watch. Ilhan, if he starts matches, if he plays for them up front, is always going to be a threat. Kairin Nadim is another one who's can come in and add that quality. Shah, another player in that midfield. So there's lots of options in there for this Young Lions side. They're good to watch, but I still think trying to find that balance in matches and trying to win games, trying to take that next step to build that sort of winning mentality and that habit of winning matches is going to take a bit more time for them.
Tanjong Pagar, a team who seem to have developed that kind of a mentality, and they have the quality going forward as well.
They do. I mean, you think of that Tanjong Pagar side, and Ryo Nishiguchi immediately stands out for me with the goals that he scored, and not just the goals. I think it's 4 goals and 2 assists, in this campaign so far. Fantastic. And a side like Tanjong Pagar, who at times will set themselves up a little bit deeper, play a bit more defensive and play on the counter-attack, to have a player like Ryo Nishiguchi who can, you can play it into him in the spaces in behind opposition defense. So you can give it into him in those wider channels when he does drift into those positions. He's another player who's got that individual quality to get himself into goal-scoring positions, create chances for himself, and create chances and opportunities for his teammates as well. So, it's a big boost for Tanjong Pagar that they have a player of that sort of quality. I know they really like him over there. I know he's regarded as perhaps their best player, especially in an attacking sense. And he will be a big threat to this Young Lions defense, as he's been in the season so far. So for Tanjong Pagar, just trying to make sure that they don't take the Young Lions too lightly. I'm sure that message will be drilled into them. But even with the likes of Sugic creating opportunities, Blake in midfield, I think has been fantastic for them. They should have, when you look at the form that they've been in, the performances that they put in, they should have a bit too much firepower for the Young Lions in this one.
Well, that game is our match of the week. Coverage begins live from 5 p.m. at the Jalan Besar Stadium. Join John Dykes along with Shashi Kumar, who'll be bringing you all the pre-match action for the game. That's all the time we have for this week's episode. Roshan, always a pleasure. Do tune into our SPL channel for all the games live for the weekend. Until next time, goodbye.